Welcome into the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. I'm Tom Leach along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's director of Simulcasting, and we're taking a look at the final four races on Saturday's Breeders' Cup card, which makes up a late pick four. Starts with the ninth race, the Turf, at 1.5 miles. Used to be the next to last race of the day, but they've moved it around a little bit in recent years. And Jim, I ended up coming down to just two horses. I'll be surprised if either the Fugue or Point of Entry doesn't win. I ended up picking Point of Entry, and it's based mainly on confidence in Shug McGahee. I mean, the connections of this horse, I just don't think they'd send him if they didn't think he was ready to run his best race. Now, he could run his best and not beat the Fugue, but I can't believe he'll be short of his best. So I'm going to put my faith in Shug and pick Point of Entry, but the Fugue's a very close second. I think one of those two wins it. And then if I'm filling out a try, Real Solution would be my third pick, but really I think it's in pick fours, I'll just use those two. What about you?
We're pretty much the same. I took the Fugue. I think the races that she ran in Europe beating the boys are very impressive, and I would not be shocked at all if she runs big over here. Point of Entry, I'm like you, Shug McGahee wouldn't run the horse if he wasn't right. There's been some talk about this is awfully quick to come back from an injury. Hadn't run since June the 8th. So, but he's the class of the race. I mean, 6 grade ones in a row, and he's been right there. He could have won 6 grade ones in a row. He lost the Breeders' Cup Turf by half a length last year to Little Mike, as I very painfully remember. So I think that those two, the other horse that I like, you mentioned Real Solution, but I also like Big Blue Kitten, who just missed in the Turf Classic. And Ramsey could have a big day. I mean, it's been Ramsey's year. There's no reason to believe that he won't do well on Breeders' Cup Day. So I would use the Fugue and Point of Entry on top of Real Solution, Big Blue Kitten, and the other one that I mentioned was, those are actually the only four horses that I would use. Yeah.
The Ramseys won 3 grade ones within an hour and a half on Arlington Million Day. I don't know if they can do that in this one, only because there's more of a separation than 30 minutes on the races, but they could have a big day, certainly.
It would not surprise me at all.
No, not at all. Let's go to the Sprint, always a tough handicapping challenge, and I think it is again this year. It's 6 furlongs, blazing on the Santa Anita main track. Where did you go?
It's a lot of fun. I'm going to go for somebody else who's had a real magic year. I think Mr. Ramsey's in his mid-70s, and Dwayne Lucas is 78 years old, and I'm going to take Fast Bullet here.
Ooh.
I know it's a stretch, but I'm going to completely toss the race in August when he was on the slop in the Forego. If you go back to his form at Belmont, the True North, he was just amazing. Beat Justin Phillip with no trouble, and Justin Phillip comes back and almost wins the Vosburg after that. So I'm going to take D. Wayne Lucas. A lot of people are saying they wish that Baffert still had him. Wayne Lucas has had one heck of a year, and I'm going to say it's going to be kept off by a win in the Sprint. The other horses that I like in here are Gentleman's Bet, who's much better than his Phoenix effort in the last. I'm just going to toss that effort as well. And Private Zone seems to be running second at Santa Anita, so it might not be a bad key to keep Private Zone second and third here. But I'm going to take Fast Bullet at a price for Dwayne Lucas.
I think you make an interesting case here. I did not take that horse, but the point about how easily he beat Justin Phillip, who I think's got a shot to be right there in this race, is a very good point. I ended up picking Secret Circle for Baffert. I went back and watched the comeback race, his first race in about a year and a half, and he just won so easily, and he has worked sensationally since then. And Baffert is good in this kind of spot, so I'm going to take Secret Circle over Justin Phillip and Private Zone. But I think you make a good case for Fast Bullet that I'll probably include him in my pick 4 as well, because he'll be a huge price. And Gentleman's Bet, you're right, that absolutely a really live long shot that I think will get overlooked because of the connections. And just throw out that race here at Keeneland. It was number 1 a prep, and number 2 he got off to a bad start. So
right.
I think he's a definitely interesting long shot. The 11th race is the Breeders' Cup Mile, and the question is, can you beat Wise Dan? Can you?
Well, there's a lot of people saying that you can, and I watched this race at Keeneland where Silver Max went wire to wire. The poly track was different that day. We had a rainstorm, obviously, that we had to take the Shadwell off the turf. I don't think Silver Max can beat Wise Dan on a firm turf course. And if you don't look at that last race, Wise Dan is the best mile turfer in the world. I'm going to take Wise Dan on top. Silver Max and Olympic Glory are the two horses that I think could jump up if Wise Dan is not quite as good as he was. But I'm going to take Wise Dan, and as you'll see in a minute, I'll single him in our pick fours.
I'm going with Wise Dan too. I don't think this field is as tough as the one he beat last year, when obviously was running much better, and when you had Animal Kingdom, who ran a great race in there. I think this is an easier field. Now, Wise Dan's a year older, so maybe that last was an indication that he has started to lose a step. I tend to think it's nothing like that he's going to come back and run his A game and win this for the second year in a row and make a bid for another Horse of the Year title. I think the only one I could see beating him would be Silver Max. I mean, he got a 108 buyer last time and a couple of 100-plus buyers in the two races before, so I think he has cycled back to a top level, and that top is better than he was last year when in the spring and summer he was one of the best turf horses in the country. So I think he's got a shot to get him, but I don't think he can beat him on this firm turf course. No Jet Lag's the other one I like. I think he's a 3-year-old that's peaking, and I think those are always dangerous in any race this time of year. But Wise Dan's the pick for me, and I too will be singling him in the pick 4. Finally, that gets us to the Breeders' Cup Classic, and we've lost Ron the Greek, who actually I had in my top 3 that I picked for the Keeneland Select website, so I'll have to make an adjustment there. But for me, I ended up coming back to Mucho Macho Man. His 2 best speed figures have been on the main track at Santa Anita, a win last time in a Grade 1 and a narrow loss last year in this race. Gary Stevens seems to be a perfect fit for this horse and seems to be doing well since that last race, so Mucho Macho Man for me, not anywhere near a single, though. I think Palace Malice is dangerous. I like 3-year-olds that are getting good coming into this race, and I think his last race he caught, the rail's been the place to be at Belmont all fall, and that's where Ron the Greek came up, and he just kind of freaked that day, and Palace Malice was second. So, Fort Larned was third in that race last year, came back to win the Classic. So I think Palace Malice, I don't think he was primed for his best that day, and he will be for this day. So I think he's definitely one to watch. As I said, Ron the Greek was the other one I had in there, so I'll have to do a little adjusting on that one. Not sure where I'll go on some of the other picks. I kind of like one of those other 2 to win it. I'm not high on Fort Larned. Going to take a stand against Game On Dude. So probably in pick 4s, I'll maybe just use Mucho Macho Man and Palace Malice. Maybe for a 50-cent ticket, I might throw in the 2 Europeans in case they just jump up with Lasix and really improve. But, it's going to be one of those other 2, I think, for me. What about you?
The winner, I think, is Mucho Macho Man. Where I had trouble is coming up with an order of finish behind him, because I think that prep in the Awesome Again at Santa Anita sets him up perfectly. Gary Stevens is riding better than anybody at Santa Anita. Kathy Ritvo doesn't have many horses, but she's gotten this horse ready almost every time. He fires just about every time out of the gate, and I think it just sets up very well for him. A lot of people think Game On Dude is due. He's 7 for 8 at Santa Anita, but he fell short last year in this race, and I think he falls just short again. I'm going to take him below Mucho Macho Man, and I'm going to take the 3-year-olds for third. I'm going to take Will Take Charge and Palace Malice. I'm not going to use Painter. I really don't think they should have run him in this spot, but Flat Out probably has a shot to get the money.
Yeah.
And Fort Larned, you can't rule out Fort Larned, but Flat Out always runs hard, so I would think Flat Out's probably a pretty good key, second and third as well. But I'm going to take a stand on Mucho Macho Man, but in the pick 4, I'm going to go deeper than that. I think it is a very competitive race, especially if he doesn't fire his A game.
I think you make the point you make about Flat Out running late. I think that it pays attention. It would pay dividends perhaps to look for those late runners to fill out tries and supers here, because I think Fort Larned it was going to send, and Game On Dude got beat, they think, with a bad break last year, so they're going to make sure he gets out of there quick. And I think this and Moreno's in there and has worked well, and he's a front runner, so I think there's a chance of a pretty hot pace in the Classic.
Yeah, I think so too. And Flat Out always tries hard. Rosario always tries hard, so I think that's a good horse to key on underneath.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to everyone. What about late pick 4? Let's take a quick glance at that. I would go point of entry in the Fugue, spread out in the sprint and use all the ones I talked about, Justin Phillip, Private Zone, Gentleman's Bet, Secret Circle. I think I'll throw in the Fast Bullet Horse, too, off what you said. Single Wise Dan, and then Mucho Macho Man and Palace Malice. What about you?
Okay, here's what I'm doing. I am not going to let Little Mike beat me again. Little Mike cost me a pick 4 last year, and I had a pick 4 picked out without him in it in the first leg, and I put him back in. So here's what I do in the first leg. I use Little Mike, the 4 horse, the 7, the Fugue, Point of Entry, the 8, Indy Point, the 9, Big Blue Kitten, the 10, and Real Solution, the 12. So I go 6 deep. In the sprint, if I could afford it, I'd go all, but I'm going to go Justin Phillip, the 1, Gentleman's Bet, the 3, then Private Zone, the 7, my top pick, Fast Bullet, the 8, and Secret Circle, the 9, your top pick. Single Wise Dan, and then somehow in the Classic, I took all the outside horses, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. I'm not going to let Fort Larned beat me out of a pick 4, although I don't really like him in this spot, but I don't like any of the inside horses. So Mucho Macho Man is my top pick, but I'm going to include Fort Larned, Palace Malice, Game Undue, Will Take Charge, and Flat Out. So I think that's $90. So if you can afford $90 at the end of the day, that will pay huge dividends even with Wise Dan as a single.
I hated to see Ron the Greek scratch because I actually thought he had a shot to run a big race in here with the way the pace would set up, and he'd won at 1.25 miles at Santa Anita before. But it's not going to be. Maybe it'll show up in the Clark Handicap at Churchill later in the month. Jim, best of luck on your picks, and best of luck to all of our followers here on the podcast, and hopefully you'll have some great success stories. We've got some questions from some of you that have come in, and we'll get back to those in future editions. But with so many races to handicap, we have focused just on the races for this edition of the podcast from KeenelandSelect.com.